So thank you guys for making the time to join us. You're probably an interested audience, and I see some people out there that I'm like, when I think about crisis communications, I think about you. And I think about some of you are going through some crisis of your own now. Others of you have been through lots of it. So I'm excited that this will be a great opportunity for us to hear from two rock stars who've been through a lot of crazy and can talk to you about best practices, but also like this is a conversation. So feel free to use the chat to share questions, to share comments and perspectives, because the whole purpose of these monthly coffee and collaborations for Livestock Publications Council is for all of us to get a little bit better at what we do and have a little bit of a bigger perspective when we're done. And so briefly, I'm Jennifer Scheich. I'm the editor at Farm Journals Pork, and I have the privilege of helping lead coffee and collaborations in our education committee with Angie Denton. We're super excited because we've got some fun things coming up with LPC. We've got our first regional workshop that's kind of coming back. We haven't had one for a while because of COVID and crazy and everything. And so we're bringing that back. And so mark your calendars for September 25th. That's maybe one of our first announcements of it. I hope it's okay I'm talking about it, Stacy, but we're getting ready to release that information. And for those of you University of Illinois fans out there that I see, it's going to be at the University of Illinois at the ACES Library. So I'm excited to be able to work with some of our friends at the university to help put together a really great event, and excited about some of the possibilities of who will be able to be part of that. So stay tuned for more on that. I'm going to turn it over to Stacy Fox quick for some quick announcements. She serves as our LPC Executive Director.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Jennifer, and for announcing our regional workshop. No one else should have announced it but you, because you worked really hard on that. So really hope that you all will join us, and we'll get some more information out on that as soon as possible. Our big thing right now, though, is Ag Media Summit. That is coming up end of July in Rogers, Arkansas. And if you have not read, as soon as you can, prices go up July. So that's your last day to get the best rates and hotel and everything, but no reason to wait. So great program that is lined up for you. And I think you'll find across the board in our keynote and our educational breakout sessions, it'll be an excellent event, as well as you know, all the networking and time spent with friends and in the industry. So we really hope that you'll join us for Ag Media Summit. Rogers, Arkansas, it's easy to get to. I know we've had a lot of questions about that. It's still really easy to get to. There's a flight an airport about 20 minutes away. And it's just a great little town. And so we're really excited about that. So I'll drop the link to the Ag Media Summit website in the chat. But otherwise, that is what we're working on right now. So we hope to see you there. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And I think that's my update for now, Jennifer. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, for those of you who just joined, I'm in the middle of a tornado about to be warning. Not a tornado, sorry. Tornado watch, about to be a warning. Use your words appropriately. So I apologize. I'm going to probably go off screen because I'm already getting, I hope you can hear me okay. It's already kind of checking out on me. But I'm so excited for our session today. We have Dr. Erica Irlbeck and Scarlett Madinger. Last year they presented, I believe it was the last Ag Media Summit. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Time goes by fast. About sharing Ag's message during the worst times. And they've been through some experiences that I think will be very insightful. And I know that I wasn't able to attend this last year, so I'm super pumped that I get to hear it, because I think this is something that I don't think I can ever hear enough about, because, we are on the front lines of dealing with crisis in agriculture when they happen. And we always hope they won't, but if they do, I hope we can all be ready. And I also think it's really important to remember that we all have each other and that we're not alone in this. And so I 100% have some of your phone numbers on speed dial that should the worst things happen in the pork industry, I will be calling you. You can be ready for that. And if it happens, you call me, and let's make sure we're all talking, because we need each other to get through those tough times. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Thank you so much. Don't forget to ask your questions over in the chat, or have them ready to ask at the end.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think you're too kind in your introduction because my experience is really more from the academic point of view. I study this stuff and haven't had to deal with it so much. Maybe like 20 years ago when I was working in the AgCom biz, but mine's really more studying and ended up writing a book. And some of you on this call today are quoted in my book, including my co-host, Scarlett. Introduce yourself, please, and tell about some of the stuff you've been dealing with.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here with all of you. I'm familiar with several of you on the phone or on Zoom. So I'm Scarlett Madinger, and I work for the Kansas Livestock Association, and I have been here for nearly 24 years, which is hard to believe. But we seem to have our share of crises here in Kansas for whatever reason. We're happy to share those with other states, but nobody seems to be a taker most often. But we've had some experiences here. Some of them have been learning at a quick pace, but it has prepared us for other things that have come down the road. I grew up in Texas. Like I say, I've been here for nearly 24 years. I've been very active in LPC for many years, and I'm just happy to talk to you guys about just the experiences that I've had. And more importantly, we're happy to talk with you guys about any experiences that you have had. We want this to be something that we can share as a group. So please share experiences, ask questions. We may not have the answer, but somebody else in the group may. So we want this to be a collaborative effort today.
Absolutely. And when we were putting this together, we kind of thought like we're dealing with a group. Many of them would be, doing the communicating in the event of a crisis, and some of them may be on the journalism side. So with Livestock Publications Council, we were like, well, we're going to have kind of a mixed bag. So we're going to give a mixed bag of information. And so I'm going to take kind of the textbook approach to crisis communication. So, 5 hopefully easy steps for you to kind of just getting a plan together. And then Scarlett will talk about some ways that people have done a really great job in communicating a crisis and telling the story, the human story, the agricultural story behind the crisis, and how that impacts humans, how that impacts families and industry. So I'll jump right into my side of the slides here first. So crisis communications plan is to boil it down, it's just a collection of information, assignment of responsibility. You've got a strategy kind of in mind. And I say kind of in mind because your crisis doesn't go according to plan. It just doesn't work like that. And hopefully it can be created in 5 easy-ish steps. So step 1 would be assessing your risk. What are the 3 to 5 worst things that could happen? I put cattle on the slide because 1, know your audience, and 2, there's so many things that could go wrong in the cattle industry. So 5 worst things on the list: natural disasters, tornadoes should be on that list, not to freak anybody out. But what else? What other things are likely to our industry? Is it a data breach? Is it a pandemic? Is it some sort of a financial, some sort of a trade, something? Like, what are those 3 to 5 worst things? And this needs to be a team effort when you do this. This isn't just your job. So I would, do a brainstorming session on this one. And I also like to say, get the most negative person in your office, or the doomsdayist in your office to do that, because they'll have some really good things that come in on this. So the next step is, are there some things that can be prevented with good communication? Do we need better safety protocols? Do we need to do some training? Do we need to go ahead and have that, like a major animal disease outbreak tabletop drill? Is there some sort of a bigger issue like a food safety campaign or some sort of a mental health campaign? Can we partner with somebody on this one? Because rarely does a crisis affect just one industry or one organization. There's lots of things that could come from a risk communications campaign. And I know many of you have done a really great job of leading some of these campaigns. And so we'll go from there. Next step is writing the plan. And this really comes to who does what. Who's in charge? Who's in charge of making the decisions? Who's in charge of the communications? Who's going to manage the money? Who's going to be the record keeper? Who's going to be kind of the office manager in this situation? Who's going to manage the phone calls, the email, the social media messages? So decide that ahead of time. That way, when you go into this mode, it, one, doesn't fall to one person, and two, everybody's like, what do you need me to do? Because that tends to happen because people are willing to help. They just need to know what their job is. And, one of the examples I've written about, like maybe your IT person is a really good writer, or maybe your IT person is really friendly on the phone. And so, okay, we're going to move you to phones and, whatever. So like every case is different. Every office is different. And the next one in this designation, the who does what, this is where you need to designate and train your spokesperson. And I like to say spokespersons because rarely do you need just one spokesperson. And a lot of the crisis communications books talk about the spokesperson. But I think I said this in the LPC session last summer. I promise you, when your crisis hits, your spokesperson is going to be on a cruise. That's how it works. Or they're going to be, out in the boonies somewhere. So have multiple people trained that can speak on behalf of the organization. If you have a board, make sure all of your board members are trained because they're your organization leaders. And another thing, your board is probably spread out in a geographic area. When you look at the state of Texas, it's a big state. So, if somebody from Houston media is calling up here in Lubbock, it'd be best if we had somebody in the Houston or coastal area where we could send them to that media. And that way it's just more of a local contact for them. So those are kind of my tips on spokesperson. And I will say, like, a lot of this stuff is boiling down like 3 chapters of a book into like 25 minutes. So we'll talk a little bit more about some other things that happen in between here. Develop that response plan. Give yourself permission to know that you can't plan for everything and don't try. Just be able to switch on the fly and go back to that risk assessment. What are the most likely or most devastating things that could happen? And start there. Have your plan ready for those most likely things, and craft some media statements, craft some email statements to employees, things that you could put on social media, and then what else? So like if we had some sort of a student misbehavior type of thing, would we get media involved, or would we just need to communicate with just the faculty? Like, who would be our audiences in those types of situations? And then, of course, if something was prolonged and elevated, it might garner some media attention. So how would we handle that? You just kind of have some templates and fill in the blank when things happen. And we had an issue. We had 2 students pass away in a travel accident back in the fall, and I had to craft the statements that went out to faculty and then that went out to the entire college. And to sit down at your desk and be like, what do I say? I had something written and it just was a start. And like that just kind of freed me up to go in and fill in the blanks. And so just even that little bit was helpful. Having your contact information pulled together, and I would have this in some sort of a cloud server where multiple people can get to it. Cell numbers, email addresses, that'd be really about all you need in here. But like, have your core team for sure, and then those core people, have them develop their contact lists as well. So, like here at Texas Tech, I have all the department chair cell numbers, and if I need to get something broader out to the faculty, I would lean on them to text information out to their faculty or to forward an email for me and things like that. Having your media contact information, having directions, addresses, things like that, like especially if your building is hard to find, and that might be something you just need to have anyway. You know, I've even seen some people say, "Don't trust your GPS to find us. Go, you know, turn right at the grain silo," or, you know, whatever. And then just emergency service providers. Those are some other contacts that would be good to have in this list. When things are calm, doing things like this, developing your professional network, going to Ag Media Summit, getting to know your board members very well, developing your employee relationships, training, doing simple drills, tabletop exercises, full-scale drills. Those are some things that are really important to do when you're not in a crisis. And then some other things, making sure all your information is current on your website, having an online press kit, having a photo and video library pulled together, and then just having that social media presence. And that way your core audience knows that you're going to be pushing out information through social media and just having them know where to go. And those are some things that can happen when things are in a calm, peaceful, serene day, just like on this picture. And then, you know, just some reminders, tips. If you are doing your very best to serve victims, take care of victims and their families, you're doing what you're supposed to do. Victims come first. Respond to all inquiries. As things move forward in the crisis, care for victims, communicate with your employees, and appear as calm as you can. Even if you are the proverbial duck in water and your feet are going 1,000,000 miles an hour, just appear as calm as you can. So that is a semester's worth of class, a textbook in a nutshell, and I will turn it over to Scarlett to share some good examples and telling the story of a crisis.
Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, I'm going to focus on telling the story, and Erica, can I advance or do you need to advance?
I
Okay.
think I have to, I have
Okay.
to for you. Sorry.
Perfect. Nope, this is perfect. So I first wanted to talk a little bit about telling versus relaying. And I know we use these words interchangeably a lot of the time in the English language, but I think there is a little bit of a small difference. If I'm telling the story, then I've got my spokesperson's hat on from my perspective. I kind of wear two different hats at KLA. So I am the KLA spokesperson. You know, I speak on behalf of our members. So in a crisis, I'm the one taking the media calls. But I also relay the story many times when I'm wearing my editor of the Kansas Stockman hat and I'm going out and visiting with members and maybe writing a story on what's going on their specific ranch. And so you're going to handle some things similarly, but a lot of things differently, depending on what the situation is. So if you're telling the story, if you are the spokesperson in a crisis, you know, first and foremost, what are your talking points? You know, what's the message that you are trying to get across to the media and also to your members if you're within an association like I am. And those could be similar, they could be a little bit different. Likely they will be a little bit different. Only because you may be trying to relay some information to your members about disaster relief program, programs that they can access, you know, trying to get them that information, who they need to contact, that kind of stuff, which may not be that pertinent to media when they call. So have your talking points ready. Spokesperson, I think, is a huge deal, and plural is a huge deal because you are only one person. And I have been there before, and you can only answer you only have 2 ears. And but you can only answer one phone call at a time, and they will come rapidly, and you've got to have somebody else that can help you take media calls, and then you've got to have others that are strictly from our perspective here at KLA, the kind of the member communicators, right? And we're all on the same page. We're all sharing the same information, but I can't communicate to members and media and all of that on my own. And so we have staff, our membership staff and others that handle the media or the members. And we here in communications focus on the media calls, our social media, getting those messages out there as best we can. And then also your leadership is key because, outside media, trade media, and just your everyday public media are going to want to talk to producers. And depending on the crisis, you're going to want to be really strategic about who they talk to. And so you want to have your leaders trained. We have a couple of different leadership programs that we have yearly. We have our leadership conference, and then we have our Young Stockman's Academy. And as part of those, every year we do what we call advocacy training or media training. So no matter what group is in that year's class, they go through some sort of media training. So through the years, we have trained up many producers. Now, would I say all of those, are ready to step in front of the TV camera? No, but they have all had some sort of training and could be refreshed somewhat quickly if needed in the midst of a crisis. So if you have any programs like that within your organization and you haven't incorporated some sort of media training in that, I would suggest that you do if you can, if it makes sense, just to kind of start back building your group of spokespeople out in the country. Be prepared with statements for all platforms, because a statement that I'm going to put out on Facebook doesn't match, a statement that maybe you're going to use, I'm going to use on the phone with media, or one that you're going to use to email out. So make sure that you kind of have some statements that, while they're saying the same thing, they match the platform that you're going to share them on. And then again, just make sure that everybody's on the same page. And that means outside people too. So not only your inside, your staff, but also your key leadership. Make sure they're in the loop on your messaging and what's going on and where you're at, so that we're all sharing the same messaging. Now, if I'm relaying the story as editor of the Stockman, if I'm writing a story about the crisis, you are going to focus on that human element. You're going to tell that personal story because it's more focused. You're honing in on maybe one or two ranches that went through that crisis. You're going to showcase their resilience and their hope. If there's one thing that I have learned in my 24 years in this business and in agriculture, because I grew up in agriculture, it doesn't matter what the crisis is. When you talk to a farmer or rancher, they're always going to say, we're going to rebuild. The sun's shining, we're going to be okay. And they are some of the most resilient people, and they want that to shine through. And so you want that to come through with your messaging. And then, share ways to help. That helps us that are trying to tell the story on the communications end. Our members are needing help, whether it's donations of hay or fencing or whatever it may be. So be willing to share those ways to help. If you're doing a story that's maybe 5 years after the crisis, what were some of the lessons learned? Because that's what a lot of others are interested in, producers that maybe haven't been through that crisis. Tell them what the lessons learned were. And first and foremost, be empathetic. Like, these are people that are going through a crisis. Be empathetic. Be aware of the situation. Understand that this is a tough time for them, and you're kind of invading their space a little bit. And while you're wanting to tell a good story, it's a hard time for them. So be sensitive to that. If you'll go ahead, Erica, I'm just going to share some examples of some stories in the past that I think have just done a really good job. Of course, the Starbuck wildfire was a huge fire here in Kansas back several years ago. And Michael Pierce, who was working for the Wichita Eagle at the time, did a really nice job of covering the fire. He went out to Ashland, Kansas, Southwest Kansas area, really right after the fire went through. In fact, there was still active fire around. And right here you see a picture of Greg Gardner at Gardner Angus Ranch. And so he wrote a story, but he also has video, he has drone coverage, and it's heart-wrenching to watch, but he did a really respectful job of sharing Greg's story. He also went to Inglewood, small town directly hit by the fire. He rode around in the pickup with the mayor, who took him around and showed things. And so he just did a really nice job of respectfully covering it, but really showed the devastation of the fire that took place. And you could just, he just does such a nice job. If you know Michael, he does such a nice job of letting them tell their story, and you can really hear the struggle when they talk, and it just was well done in a time where things were really, when people were really struggling. Okay, if you wanna, okay, I'm gonna call out Kayleen here. I think she's on the Zoom, so she's probably gonna be a little surprised, but I'm calling you out, Kayleen. So again, Starbuck Fire, Kayleen, of course, works for High Plains Journal. And she unfortunately her husband's family was impacted by the fire, but she took the opportunity to share her own experience and with the fire. And that actually led to then U.S. Senator Pat Roberts, who was from Kansas, sharing part of that story, her written word, on the Senate floor when he was talking to them about the need for disaster programs here in Kansas right after the fire. And I share that because, it's somewhat rare for those of us in the ag journalism industry to be directly impacted by a crisis potentially. And so if we have the opportunity, and I say opportunity loosely, like nobody wants to be in the middle of a crisis, but her words provided extra ammo, if you will, for Senator Roberts to take to DC and share the struggle and share the need for disaster programs. And I just thought that was a great thing that she was just sharing about what her family went through, but it went so much further than that. And so that's the opportunity that you can have if you can share those things. So this is actually the Texas Farm Bureau, and I think this was a great opportunity if you're part of an association or group like this that you can do again on behalf of your members. They were struck by a winter storm in 2021, and it was Winter Storm Uri. And so it was the area near Uvalde, Texas. And so if you're familiar with Texas, it was Southwest Texas. They don't have temperatures like this in Uvalde, Texas. Like they were in the teens for several days. And this is an area that grows a lot of fruits and vegetables. And anyway, the freeze devastated many crops, like total devastation for farmers. And so Farm Bureau went and talked specifically to some of their members, and took footage of farms and cropland that was destroyed. And they used this as part of to discuss the lack of insurance for farmers like this, and why there was a need, because of course this devastated, they lost their entire crop. And so as an association, if you see holes in things that your members might need, this would be a great opportunity for you to, again, you don't want this to happen to your members, but think these things through when they do. Are there holes in disaster programs that you can highlight through this so that if this happens again, your members aren't caught kind of empty-handed and you can be proactive again if it happens again, things like that. And then, so this one is a story that I actually had personal experience with. So this is actually a story I really hate to talk about, but the heat stress cattle story in 2022 here in Kansas. This was one that just, boy, came out of nowhere and caught on like a wildfire. And it was one that I literally took about 100 media calls within 2-day time period. But this specific one, there was a Fox weather reporter that showed up at a feed yard unannounced, knocked on the door, and of course they were completely caught off guard and basically said, call KLA and shut the door. And so the reporter called here, and again, it had been a long couple of days. And, he was frustrated because that was their response. I was frustrated because he showed up on my member's front door unannounced. I can be pretty protective of our members. Maybe that's a flaw, maybe it's not, but I get pretty protective of them. And so in this situation, I was highly protective of them. And so, he was frustrated, like, I just want to tell their story. And, and I'm like, don't show up on the doorstep. But all of that to say, we actually ended up having him visit with another one of our members that wasn't in the center of it all, but kind of on the outskirts of where the heat stress situation occurred. And ultimately, this reporter did a really nice job. And so I was really glad that it all worked out well and we ended up working with him, because then we developed that relationship with him. Because here at KLA, we really try to always work with the media. We just never say no comment, or we never don't take a media call. We really try to work with them, and we've worked really hard over the years to develop those relationships. So this could have ended a lot differently, but thankfully it didn't, and he did a really nice job. And so I think you have to think those things through. Yes, you're going to have ones that don't want to tell the story you want to tell. And with those, you can just do the best you can do. But you're going to work with, I feel like you're going to work way more with folks that want to tell the story. You just have to give them the information. And so be willing to take the time to give them the information. When you're in crisis mode, everything's an emergency, right? You just feel like you don't have a lot of time. But if you can take the time and help them tell the story, it will help you in the end, I think. And this was my prime example, even though I was so frustrated with him for putting my member in that position, but it worked out well in the end. So that's just maybe a lesson learned from me, I guess. Oh, yeah, that was
didn't mean to rush
all
you.
I had on that. No, that's all I had on that.
Sorry. Yeah, good job. As you should protect your members.
Awesome.
That's all we had prepared.
Okay.
But we knew that there would be good conversation. And Holly, I am dying to talk to you. What's going on? If you want to share.
I will share. We, the American Angus Association and our foundation accepted a grant from the Bezos Earth Fund to study methane research and livestock efficiency in cattle. And we have had, it's a little bit a different situation than what you guys are your examples that you've talked about, because it has been almost exclusively a social media backlash by a few members, but mainly not members, that have taken to social media to talk about it. And I guess and the thing, my question is, in a situation like that where we are really focused, it's almost exclusively in on Facebook, right? Um and we knew that there would be likely be some opposition, but it was nasty, and we released it in April, nothing happened, and then all of a sudden 6 weeks later, it whatever you want to call it, the manure hit the fan, right? And so I guess my question is, do you have advice on managing social media in a situation like that? And not just social media, but I lump in podcasting in there, because there's a lot of people that have that their brand is negativity, and so they jump on the bandwagon. So do you have any advice in that realm?
It on that, so if you have somebody that's saying stuff about you and negativity is their thing, be careful. And like, I don't think there's anything wrong with sending them an email to be like, here are the facts of the story. I would be careful about, especially after listening to several podcasts and you're like, yeah, I don't think I want to go on here, because like, what's that saying? Like, if you wrestle with a pig and then you're both still a pig,
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, like you may not want to get yourself into that situation and go in and comment on, like do an interview with them. But I think you can send email facts to be like, this is really what happened. Thank you for paying attention to our organization. This is really what happened. Same thing with Facebook. Like, if things are Facebook and all social media, if things start really getting carried away, like I feel like you can kind of add your piece and then be done with it. And
Yeah, and that's what we've done, is like we have not we've taken all media calls from um mainstream ag trade media, whatever you want to call it. Um we have not taken any calls from, or taken any reviews from beyond that, I would say. And and I guess my second question to that is, I don't want to monopolize if people have other questions, but like, in this situation, it's really obvious if there's a fire blazing through Southwest Kansas, that's a crisis. I think hindsight's 2020, but I think one of the things that we made the mistake of is knowing when it was a crisis, and I don't know if there are telltale signs in that regard. We our decision was, our board members are not being called. They're not taking phone calls. And so we waited maybe a day or two longer than probably we should have to respond online. But because no one was calling, I mean, like, we thought, so, I mean, I'm not defending what we did, but in hindsight, I think we should have done it a couple days sooner.
I think those issues are so hard. I mean, so we've been in your same
Yeah.
spot on like marketing issues, if you
Yeah.
will. And it really comes down for us a lot of times. And again, I don't know if we do it right or wrong, but we try to really look at members versus non-members.
Yeah.
And you guys have done similar to what we've done you've put out your statements, you've addressed things. And then when it just keeps on, then there comes a point when you've got to like just pull back because there comes a point then when you
Right.
keep posting stuff, it just keeps
Yeah.
egging them on.
Right.
And so that then typically for us, when you get to that point, then you're just looking to see, are there members on there that are disgruntled? And then maybe we're reaching out to them personally,
Yeah.
instead of having that back and forth on Facebook. That's really probably not going to get you.
But you can do that, but they still won't stop the Facebook stuff.
Oh, no. It
Yeah,
won't.
yeah,
And it won't
right.
stop the negative, those, and there's the typicals, right?
Mhm.
And it won't. And sometimes unfortunately, you just have to write it out.
Yeah.
Which is the hardest part, or it is for me, because like I say, I really want to defend like they can say what they want to about me, but when they start
100%.
saying stuff
Mama
about
Bear
our
here
members,
is like, don't go after that guy. He has
Yeah.
your best interest at heart.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's the hardest part when they start attacking our members. Like, I'm like, listen here,
Yeah. So is there, okay, one last question, and then I'll let somebody else ask one. When there is inaccurate information out there, and we've posted the accurate information, we've shared it and all of that stuff, there's no, I mean, like, we have not gone on to try to get into a comment back and forth because that is not productive. But it is really hard when you're seeing inaccuracies out there that are just not true. Is there anything that you can do about those situations?
I mean, I haven't found, like, if you've posted the accurate stuff and they
Mhm.
just keep on, I mean, short of just like reposting in their comment, like this is, but then that's, I think what you have to decide, or what we have done in the past, is try to decide if we address this with them, are they interested, or are they just wanting to share the negative? And you can usually determine by the tone of their Facebook page whether they're interested in hearing the truth, or if they're just going to share the negative, and it doesn't matter what you say, they're never going to believe you.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, then you just gotta keep on scrolling.
I guess I would say to Erica, to your points too, I do feel like we were fairly prepared for crisis comms in the sense that maybe Scarlett, those examples, I felt less prepared for this kind of crisis communication, and don't know what we could have done. But I mean, there are missteps that we're learning from, and we're gonna, um, share far and wide if we can. But I mean, it is really hard to anticipate these kinds of crises, I think. And so, you know, having a good team and having, some of the things still apply. All of the one or two or three, key spokespeople, where does all the information go? Who's responding? All of that stuff is the same. But, and the anticipation part, I think was really hard in this scenario.
It is. And there are some things you can never.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kenna.
Thought they'd have to deal with people eating their Tide Pods, and then it's and it's Tide's fault. There are so many that you're never going to predict. And like, there are textbook crisis categories, and I would say 85% of crises can fit into these types of categories. But then you get these, like, just a social media crisis or a reputational crisis, and you're like, what even is this? What do we even call it? This doesn't have a category.
Yeah.
I followed the steps. This doesn't fit the steps. So there are.
The other piece, I guess I would say, is that you said something about having network, and like, there are people on this call that reached out to me and said, hey, if you need advice or whatever. And then Kenna, I called her and asked her. We did hire somebody just to help us think through. And so it was always good to have somebody to like, this is my reaction. I think, or this is, I guess, has been good for me, is to say, I need somebody with an outside perspective to help me, say, are we doing this right? Is there something that we could do differently? So anyway, that network is super important is all I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, on a different perspective, when you're in the throes of that, like you have to remind yourself and your team, like sometimes you have to like get your team together and be like, look, kids, we're okay. We're doing good work. Like hang in there. And I mean, we've done that here before, like, cause you feel like you're taking a whooping and you are, but you're, you think about your whole of your members and remember that like they're behind you. Your members are behind you. It's just hard when you're buried in that social media crazy. But sometimes you just got to regroup and cheer each other on in the background. Like we're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
I'm done with questions. Sorry.
I hated it when my boss used to say, this too shall pass. And I just was like, you do not know what it's like to be me in this moment. This is not passing. And I remember going through some challenges in the early years of starting up the National Junior Swine Association and just things that I'm like, yeah, there's no category for this. What am I even dealing with? How do I even respond to this? Because this is just stupidity. However, it's like part of what we have to do and we're called to do. And so I think that's so many like very wise pieces of advice you guys shared. I think like I hate that you're going through that, Holly. It's hard to just like watch the ridiculousness, but to your point, Scarlett, like we're okay. Like we're gonna get through this, and there is another side of it. And I don't know. Thank you guys. Are there any other questions? I don't want to cut anybody off, but I do try to like keep these close to 45 minutes just because I know you're busy. And I know that Erica and Scarlett would be happy to visit with anybody at any time about it. And the fact that we have repeat attendees who listened to you already and came back for more brings me so much joy because that just shows like what an awesome lineup of people we have in our industry that people want to hear it again as a refresher. So thank you guys so much. You're incredible, and we appreciate all that you do for livestock publications and greater agricultural communications. And thank you guys for joining us. We are taking July off because we've got this like little AMS thing going on that we need to get ready for. So we will be back in August and we'll share more details about that soon. So thank you guys for joining us today. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody. Thanks for
everyone.
inviting me. This was fun.
Thank you. See you guys later.
Bye.